Before Lance Armstrong could even step off the podium in Paris last July, the talk of cycling's next big rivalry was already in full swing. Now with Alberto Contador and Lance Armstrong both racing this weekend, the rivalry becomes official. The two-day, three-stage Criterium International will serve as the first instalment of the Armstrong-Contador battle that will culminate at this summer's Grand Boucle. Contador is fresh off a convincing win at Paris-Nice, while Armstrong has made a more modest start, thinking as always of the month of July. Another Tour hopeful, Cadel Evans, could steal the show this weekend as his American team BMC lean on him to improve their chances of a Tour de France invite. There are also some familiar faces, very capable of doing damage in this veritable Tour of Corsica. The 79th edition of the Criterium International is next on Versus. This is the beautiful island of Corsica, deep in the heart of the south of France and in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Welcome everybody to the epic cycle presented by Michelob Ultra. I'm Phil Liggett, alongside me Bob Roll. Today is the opening day of the 79th edition of the Criterium International, and the scenes at the start, well, we'd be forgiven, Bob, if we thought we were at the start of the Tour de France. The big two are here, Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador, and look at them, Bob, this morning.
Well, the crowds gather whenever Lance Armstrong is at a bike race. He's had this on his program for a long time, since he sort of set out his schedule at the start of the season. But Alberto Contador, he's decided to grace us with his presence just in the last few days before the race started, because he thinks he's a little bit ahead of schedule. He's already won 2 stage races, including a very difficult Paris-Nice that finished a couple weekends ago. Yep. He didn't want to stress himself or the team a little bit too much, so he is here at Criterium International as well.
So an early clash between the top two. The one man who's dominated this race the past 3 years, Jens Voigt, will not be here. But Bob, this is an interesting format.
A very interesting format. They call it a mini Tour de France. There's a mountaintop finish on day 1, a very tough stage. Day 2 features a flat stage for the sprinters and a time trial to finish off Criterium International. Great little set of races.
Well, 3 big names, of course, are heading the list. There are others who could surprise, but apart from Alberto Contador, Lance Armstrong, there's also the world champion here for Team BMC, and that is Cadel Evans. Now, let's have a look. These 3 guys can really excel. I think Cadel Evans can challenge Contador.
Contador absolutely on fire so far this year. He just won Paris-Nice in commanding style a couple of weekends ago. And Lance Armstrong still building his form. He was 7th in the Tour of Murcia a little bit earlier, and he has also raced the Tour Down Under. But this will be a testing event for Lance Armstrong, his 3rd race of this year.
And Cadel Evans, of course, not yet in the Tour de France, and he's finished twice second in that event. He'll want to impress the Tour organisers today. Now, the 2-day race in the past, apart from a new venue this year, used to start with a flat stage, then we went to a mountain stage and a time trial. Today was straight into the hills of Corsica.
Well, the sprinters won't like the profile when they wake up this morning. 5 big climbs out on the course, and the finishing climb is very tough. You don't oftentimes see a profile like this early in the season, and I think that's going to give a lot of riders pause when they look at this profile, and a very, very hard climb to the finish.
Well, as we join the action here, we're just coming towards the top of the Col de Mela, and these 3 riders have just broken clear of the field. They are Bruce Feliu, we met him in the Tour de France this year, back on Soleil, Dimitri Champion of AG2R, and Pierre Roland of B-Box. Now, we have had a long break of 2 riders, Bob. They were out for 100 kilometres. Alberto Thimer and Cedric Pinault, they've been wiped up, and now we're seeing the first real attacks of the day.
Bryce Feliu, one of the promising young French climbers, one of the best climbers in the business, had a great stage win in the Tour de France last summer in Andorra at the climb to Arcalis, and that was a brilliant win. He's changed teams to Vacances Soleil. Here's an attack from another skilled Shimano rider going up the road, the teammate of Albert Thimer, who spent the first 100 kilometers of this stage of Criterium International in the lead with Cedric Pinault. They've been caught just at the bottom of the climb of the Col de Mela, and a bit of an apple of a day for riders in the peloton.
Well, it's been a steady start. At one stage they were barely averaging 20 miles an hour. Strong crosswinds and headwinds have kept them under control, but the big news early on was that the first sprint of the day, 2 riders clear by 8 minutes, but the man over in third place and best of the rest, Alberto Contador, getting a 1-second time bonus. Bob, he'll remember that last year Jens Voigt won by 2 seconds. He might remember too, back in 1999 Jens Voigt beat David Miller on the same time on countback. In fact, I remember then that Miller went home thinking he'd won the race, and Jens Voigt rang his home, left a message on the answer phone saying, "Sorry David, but I have won the race." It was amazing. So seconds may count here.
And Jens Voigt went on to win this race 5 times in all. Saxo Bank not participating. A big scheduled weekend of racing. Catalunya is being contested in Spain, and of course the great one-day classic Ghent-Wevelgem is up in Belgium. So here in Criterium International, a lot of the teams like Vacances Soleil that are trying to impress the selectors for the Tour de France a little bit later in the year in July, they want to get a spot in the Tour also. So a lot of things up for grabs on this weekend here down in Corsica. A venue change for the Tour of Criterium International, excuse me, and it's great. I'm sure the riders love the weather. Maybe they don't love the climbing so much, but the weather, absolutely fabulous.
That's why Contador says he's come here. He expects the weather to be nice, and it's only a 2-day race, and it might keep him on the road to recovery from a tough Paris-Nice for him. We've just seen them go over the Col de Mela. That takes us through 730 metres. The height there, about 2,200 feet, and that's taken us through 115 kilometres covered. So we're catching up with our schedules a little bit. Interesting that Euskaltel on the front here, Bob, and we did see riding very, very well, because he was third over the climb of the Vigianello, and that is Ahmet Jaruka, and the peloton at that time were 1:40 behind the 2 breakaway. They've been caught and probably dropped by now, I would think. We're getting down to the sharp end of the race here.
Most definitely. You can see up in the corner there, 58 kilometers to go. There's our 3 riders in the breakaway. This is our lead 3, Dimitri Champion. He's the champion of France, actually. Pierre Rolland, one of the big promising stars of French cycling, 22nd in his first Tour de France last year. He's looking to improve on that a little bit, perhaps in July. But 3 Frenchmen in the lead of this race.
Okay, well, look at this now. We've got Euskaltel in the front, but right behind the team of Alberto Contador there, keeping control of this race. I'm pretty sure the caption's wrong and it's Bryce Fellure out front, but we'll check it all out. We'll take our first break. Welcome back to the beautiful island in the Mediterranean of Corsica for stage 1 of the Criterium International. Now, this is the first race of 2010 that has brought together both Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador. And we caught up with Lance this morning and asked him about his expectations from the weekend.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind it's March, late March, almost April. So it's we have 100 days until the Tour. So you know, but come July, the middle of July, nobody will remember the stories we told in Porto-Vecchio. I've had a couple of good weeks of training since Murcia. Had the little hiccup there around the time of San Remo, but you know, I'm happy with where I am now. We still have a ways to go. There's certainly a lot of hype and promotion around this race because of Alberto's presence and my presence and other people's presence. But I think it's important to remember that we're in March, and I think he's at the you know, close to the top of his game. We saw him in Paris-Nice; he was super, and you know, this race is ideally suited to him. So I'll be the first one to say that he's the clear-cut favorite.
Well, Lance looking quite confident there, but I think we agree with him. Contador is the outstanding favourite. Well, he's got to be with the form he's showing so far. These 3 guys are still clear of the field, and as you can see, the captions which are generated direct from Corsica have now been altered, and it is Bryce Fellure in the breakaway here.
This is the chase here in the peloton, which is starting to fall apart under the pressure of the Euskaltel skating team. And Lance Armstrong speaking with us earlier this morning. Not confident entirely of his chances, but as you can see right there in the kit from Radio Shack, right in the front of the peloton where he needs to be. After this climb, it shouldn't be too hard. This group should be able to stay pretty well together if there are no attacks from the big guns. It should be fought out on the last climb of the day, which is a very tough climb to the finish.
But it's interesting, Bob. A lot of attention now being paid to the race by the Spanish teams, and particularly Euskaltel here, and also Alberto Contador's squad. A little bit of a problem here at the back of the race. It looks like Ivan Rovny, that's the Russian rider on Team Radio Shack, wants to have a chat with the car, see what's going on. And also in this breakaway here, that's David Moncoutier we're seeing at the moment. He did jump away at the start of the previous climb, the Col de Mela, got a little bit of a lead, and he was quickly brought back to heel.
Matthew Boucher there, new pro on the Radio Shack squad, a young American. Make note of that name, a big talent for the future in American cycling.
This isn't quite going according to plan, Bob. We've got these three guys have gone away, three French riders, so the French will be happy with that. They are having a very good start to the season, the teams from France. Now we're looking here, we switch back. This is Geschke de Skill Shimano. Now they're trying to impress the organisers today because they won a wild card place in the Tour de France, and they had a man in every attack today. Out front for 100 kilometres, Albert Timmer along with Cedric Pinot. When they got caught, it was Geschke's turn to put a bid in. He's missed the break and he's trying to reach it, but it looks as though he's made a mistake because here comes the peloton.
Caught in no man's land for a few kilometers, but a little bit of glory for the Skill Shimano team. They were very aggressive throughout last year's spring, and that allowed ASO, the organizers of the Tour de France, to invite them to last year's tour, and they did a very commendable job. No stage wins, but they were always in the moves.
Well, you've been to the island of Corsica, Bob. I never have been, but I remember back in the 60s when Tom Simpson was a world champion, he talked very highly of this little island in the Mediterranean Sea. Tommy had a house here, in fact, and tragically he died in the Tour de France, and that passed to his wife and her new husband, who was Barry Hoban. But this has got every element. It's a perfect venue for the Criterium International.
Very heavy-duty roads, twisting, narrow, steep climbs, reminiscent of the Pyrenees, these climbs, and always love to come to Corsica and ride these roads. Very little traffic in the interior, everything concentrated on the beach resorts on the coast, but the rest of the island is virtually deserted, and it's great for bike riding. Still a pretty big group there, but it's starting to get reduced in numbers by the pressure from this team. Euskaltel-Euskadi on the front of the peloton. They're chasing three men up the road, one of them a teammate of Vogler, and that's Pierre Roland of the B-Box team.
Well, as we see the work being done at the moment in favour of Olympic champion Samuel Sanchez, the question is, where is Lance, where is Alberto? I can tell you, right in the thick of the action. We'll take a break. Welcome back to what is the 79th edition of the Criterium International. It's a two-day stage race with all the elements of the big tour itself. Now, the American-based team BMC are here with high hopes. Earlier today, we also caught up with their team leader, Cadel Evans, who last year finished off his season with a world championship, and this year, I have to say, is showing all the signs of having a great year.
Never been to Corsica before, new experience for me. Nice layout of the race. I like it. Hard mountain stage and a time trial. It's a good test in the weekend. You know, I'm going all the way to the Giro, whereas other guys can go for the tour, can go flat out now and have a pause and come back again for the tour, whereas I'm on a slow progression towards the Giro. It's new team, new people, new mentality, and slightly different race program to normal, but it's been a real pleasure to work with a group of people who are motivated, really want to work hard, and do the best that we can.
Well, Cadel Evans is no doubt, Bob. This is the team he's brought to the Tour of Corsica, and he is very confident with that team. But let's face it, he's not yet selected for the Tour de France.
He does have to do something special here in Criterium International to get a selection into the Tour de France. He is the reigning world champion. That was a great victory for Cadel last fall, and I think it's really gotten the competitive monkey off his back. He's going to have a great year. Let's just hope he gets into the Tour with his new team, BMC.
Well, you're right, Bob, and let's not forget either, he's off to a great start because he's finished 6th in the Tour Down Under. He's been 3rd also in the Tirreno Adriatico, and what's more, I think secretly he's looking for the double, the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France, and that's not been done since Pantani in 1998. We're back with the leaders here on this first stage. Slow start, they're running about an hour behind schedule, but the pace is now getting quite hot. They're looking for a minute's lead, these three now. They got away on the bottom of the climb of the Col de Mela. They're now about 6 kilometres from the top of the penultimate climb, the Col de Bacchinu. This will take them over 800 metres, about 2,500 feet. Well, Evans at the moment is back in the main pack. All of the work is being done by Euskaltel-Euskadi, which means that Sanchez must be having a plan here because he's towing at the moment Contador's team and the Radio Shack team.
It does suit Sammy Sanchez, the long climb to the finish line. It does suit Cadel Evans as well. He spent the last 4 years on a Belgian squad. They've been called Silence Lotto, and now they're Omega Pharmacy Lotto, but I don't think he was very comfortable on that team, and he's found the ambiance on BMC, an American team. trying to get a selection for the Tour de France a little bit later in the summer. I think he really enjoys the camaraderie within that team and the hard work that everybody wants to do each time they come to the start line. That suits Cadel's style well. He's always competitive. February, January, all the way through October, where he is competitive year in and year out at the Worlds, finally winning that last year, as well as the Tour of Lombardia, the last race of the year.
I must say, Bob, I really think Cadel is on for a great season. He's a different boy since he pulled on that rainbow jersey in Mendrisio in Switzerland, which was literally only 20 miles from his Italian home. And let's not forget that this year the World Championships for the first time will be in the Southern Hemisphere. They will be down in Geelong, which is near his other home in Australia, about the same distance away, 20 miles. So he's got everything to go for this year. And the selection process, well, that's why he's here, in my opinion. He wants to show the organiser of the Tour de France he's up for it. They always take special note of the teams that choose to ride their events, knowing they want a place in the Tour de France. But the wildcard selection at the moment, and the UCI haven't got their hands on this one yet, it is down to the Tour de France organisation. And let me remind you, the organisation of the Tour de France is the same organisation as here at the Criterium International.
You'll see riders from Skill Shimano be very aggressive throughout the season in the ASO races. Also, this team that's in the break with Bryce Fayou, Vacances Soleil, and he's done a great little maneuver here, and it seems as if the breakaway's extending their lead a little bit. So Vacances Soleil, Skill Shimano, BMC going for those wild card slots in the Tour de France. The top teams in the world, the UCI Pro Rank teams, they get an automatic selection, generally speaking. So those teams are already in the race, but the tour organizers have the discretion to name a few teams of their own, and they are looking at BMC very closely. But there's also some other teams that's very competitive to get into the Tour de France.
It looks as though Alberto Contador's feeling a little bit thirsty, because that's Fofanov has come back for all the drinking bottles. He's now got to make his way right up to the front where Alberto Contador is and pass over the drinks. They won't be too unhappy with the break at the moment. Let's face it though, Bryce Fayou is a pretty good climber, as he showed us in the Pyrenees in the Tour de France last year when we'd never heard of him, and he took the yellow jersey for a day. But he is a good climber. But I think we are going to see one terrific battle on the last big climb today, the final climb, which will take us up the Los Pedal. These are the three leaders who are making a run towards the finishing line, but there's a little way to go yet. 44 kilometres to go at the current average speed. That's about 45 minutes of racing. Well, when we come back after the break, we'll be over the top of this climb. See you in a moment. 3 Eastern here on Versus. Well, they're still here, about 2 kilometres from the summit of the penultimate climb now, and the latest time check was 55 seconds for these three riders out front. They are Bryce Fayou, Dimitri Champion, Pierre Roland. This is the good old days, Bob, when the French used to be successful.
Well, the French have been very competitive, especially in the races on French soil, and just like you said, reminiscent of the days of Bernard Hinault when they were competitive throughout the year. We haven't seen that for a long time, but it's great for French cycling to have guys competitive in the Tour de France and competitive in Pyrenees and Criterium International and all of the classics. It's just perfect for French cycling, and it's a little bit of a renaissance going on in French cycling right now, and it's great to watch.
Well, they've just passed through 1 kilometre to the top for the leaders, and if you think you've just seen Alexander Vinokurov there in the break in the bunch, you have, because he's riding the race today as a teammate, back on the team now, and still denying he ever changed his blood, of course, on the Tour de France, but he served his suspension and he's getting on with his career. So he's in the Astana team today, and if he's got anything like form, he's going to be a valuable ally to Alberto Contador, that's for sure. David Miller also pretty confident as well, and he has finished second in this race a while ago now, 11 years ago, Bob, I can't believe it. But David Miller once was second to Jens Voigt. 1K to go then for the peloton, as the top three are now just on 55 seconds ahead. Euskaltel, Euskadi, the same three riders have worked the whole way up this mountain, while Contador and his team have sat in the slipstream. How do you work that, Bob?
Well, I think it's a pretty boneheaded maneuver, actually, in my opinion. You got to let the favorites team do all the work.
Absolutely.
And you can tire out his teammates. Perhaps that would play into your favor if, in the off chance that the Astana riders would be exhausted at the bottom of the climb, you would find Alberto Contador isolated. It would give Sammy Sanchez a better chance than putting your teammates on the front so early with so far to go. If I was the manager of any of these teams besides Astana, I would never let my guys go to the front until it absolutely absolutely counted. And I think that Euskaltel's gone a little bit too early. Maybe Sammy Sanchez wants to lock horns with Alberto Contador and show that he's the best, but Contador is the best climber. He's established that throughout the last couple of years, and also this season. I would let the Astana guys do all the work, every pedal stroke possible to chase down all the breakaways. I would never have my guys on the front.
Well, this is a perfect scenario at the moment because all of the heads of state are here in this group. Contador, you can see centre left there, just dancing on those pedals, waiting for the moment perhaps to move away, but I'm sure we are going to see a major explosion on the climb as we come up to the summit here. This is Pierre Roland who's going to go. He won the last climb ahead of Champion currently in second place and Failure in third, so same order over the summit as it was on the previous climb where they broke away on the Col de Melat. No change there. 40 kilometres or 25 miles left to go, so around about 40-50 minutes down to the finish back in Porto-Vecchio. I've got a feeling, not back in top of the climb today. We spent tomorrow all day in Porto-Vecchio with the circuit race fairly flattish and then the short time trial to finish off this very interesting format for this two-day race. There's the result over the top of the climb. Michael Rogers here, HTC. You know, Michael could go well. He could surprise us over this next 2 days of racing. He must not be dismissed because HTC are also on a little bit of a roll.
He's already won a stage race earlier in the year, the Ruta del Sol, after a fantastic time trial performance. If Mick Rogers can be competitive on the last climb, he can do a great time trial and get up there on the podium. It's a great race for Mick Rogers.
Interesting change of format here at the front now because we've got Euskaltel relinquishing the front, at least sending a couple of the riders back into the pack and probably telling the other teams, okay, we've done our bit, now it's time you come and give us a hand, because it's going to be a total free-for-all on the final climb. I just got a glimpse there too of Chris Horner in the Radio Shack team colours. We've got to get used to these new colours over the next few weeks, Bob, but picking out these riders.
Most definitely. You can always
Chris
tell
with the yellow shoes. You can see him in dead centre at the moment.
I was just going to say, the very technical descent before the riders come back to Porto-Vecchio, and before the last climb they will head back into the interior, but they will be looking for the coast now in a few kilometers, and then the last 15k is straight uphill to a very tough climb.
All right, so we've seen the riders over the penultimate climb of the race. The big climb is still to come. It is quite steep. The majority of the riders who fancy their chances visited the climb over the past 2 days, including Contador and David Miller. And although I've no confirmation, I'm quite sure too, Lance Armstrong. 39 kilometres to go. We'll see you back in just a moment. And we're back in the Mediterranean for day one of this year's Criterium International. A mountain-top summit in prospect today, but tomorrow is a flat stage and a short 7-kilometre time trial. Now, one rider who is coming off a solid ride at Paris-Nice 2 weeks ago is the Scot David Miller of the Garmin Transitions team. Well, we talked to him as well. Let's see what he had to say about his form.
I've been a bit tired actually since then because I wasn't quite at my best going in there, and I dug very deep in Paris-Nice, so I came out really tired. I was kind of almost getting worse through the race. But hopefully if I've recovered completely, which I'll know today, it'll be good. It's a proper mountain day today. It's more the sort of thing we do in May or June. It's kind of rarely that we do such a hard day so early in the year. But I mean, you never know. I mean, the climbs aren't so steep, so if it's windy in the last climb, it will help me because it means I can kind of just follow more and defend. But I'm sure Alberto's going to be unleashing the fury at some point, in which case no one's got a chance. I think me and Dan Martin are kind of the protected riders, and we'd love to see Danny up the road today. I mean, Danny got third here last year. So let's hope that, I mean, you never know with Danny. He can, if he's on a good day, he could do podium this year. So I definitely wouldn't write him off.
Well, we're picking up the tail of the peloton here as they descend at this climb, which will lead us to Porto-Vecchio and the final climb of the day. Very tortuous descent. But looking back to David Miller there, Bob, the two Dans he refers to, of course, Danny Pate, who's ridden well in this race before, and Dan Martin, who they're expecting will ride very well over the next 2 days.
Danny Pate, third in this event 1 year ago, and that was a great result. And Danny Pate's had a couple of successful Tour de France's since then, so a lot of Americans in with a chance here. And Chris Horner up in the front, Lance Armstrong, of course, but don't discount Danny Pate from the Garmin team, teammates with David Miller.
And the rider we've just seen with his hand up was Cedric Pinault there. He was the man that spent 100 kilometres up front earlier today in the strong winds, which have really damaged the race speed today. Cross and head for much of the way. and now the riders are being attracted towards the finish, so they're trying to lift the pace a little bit. Pinot's father, by the way, is Frank Pinot, two-time Tour rider, and it's Frank's 47th birthday today, and he's on the race as the director sportif of Française des Jeux. So he's no doubt pretty proud of his son's escapades, but he's back on the tail of the bunch. There he is. We can just see him at the moment. Sensational views. It almost feels like high summer here, doesn't it? We're right in the center of the Mediterranean, this beautiful island. That's where we're going down to the basement there. That's Porto-Vecchio as we go down what is a very tortuous descent. If we get to see the front, we're going to find that Pierre Rolland has gone off the back of the breakaway. I honestly thought I could descend as well as him. He just was going down so slowly and cautiously,
hacking through every corner, and he lost the wheels of the two riders in front that are still in front, Bryce Fayou and Dimitri Champion, the champion of France. Going back a little bit to Cedric Pinot, his team, a very new team, Roubaix-Lille, a continental professional team, not a UCI Pro Tour team, but managed by Cyril Guimard, one of the most well-known French directors of all time, and a real guru when it came to directing Greg LeMond and Bernard Hinault.
Well, these are the two we were talking about. Gone now, Pierre Rolland leaves us with the champion of France, Dimitri Champion, and Bryce Fayou of Vacances Soleil. New team for him this year. There was a rumour that Lance Armstrong approached him last year to join the Radio Shack team. He wanted to take his brother Romain with him, and Vacances Soleil did the deal. So both of the brothers now are on that team. 32 kilometres left to go for these boys. They have to be said, they've got a chance. We haven't seen the climb. Some of the riders have. That's to come. It's quite a long climb. It's around about 14 kilometres, Bob, and it's fairly steep. Although Contador, being a climber, thought it was pretty easy.
Never listen to Contador when he describes a climb. That's a good rule of thumb. If he says it's easy, it will probably tear the legs off of most mere mortals.
I tell you what, Fayou here is having a job hanging on to Dimitri Champion. As we go back to the peloton, Euskaltel have got themselves back on the front, but all those light turquoise jerseys are ridden by Contador's Astana team as they continue there. Now, remember last year when Lance left the team, taking with him in the end Johan Brunel, some of the big names like Popovic, Levi Leipheimer. It looked as though he was stripping out the Astana team, but this year this team has come together very, very well. It doesn't look like a weak team to me.
No, most definitely. Throughout the transfer season, in the fall and into the winter, Astana continued to hire riders as they became available, and they've come up with some great names. Daniel Navarro, a good Spanish rider, has joined the squad, and of course Alexander Vinokourov will be on the team, and I think he'll be a very strong asset to Contador in the Tour de France. I had my doubts about Team Astana. They look pretty weak at times in Paris-Nice also to sort of confirm some of those doubts. Yep. But I have a feeling that they'll start to come together, especially when you have such a great leader like Contador. You start to raise your game up a little bit, and you can rise to the occasion, and I think Astana will be okay team-wise. Radio Shack, directed by Johan Brunel and led, of course, by Lance Armstrong. You know they're going to be absolutely fabulous throughout the year.
Well, who's got it on the day? All those answers will be revealed on the final climb today, because it's going to be a tremendous race up the finishing climb. The fields seem to be well organised here. Behind the peloton, we've got just behind here Cedric Pinot tacked onto the back, the day's hero in the long breakaway. We'll take a break. We should be getting a little bit closer to Porto-Vecchio as soon as you return. Welcome back to the epic cycle on Versus for the opening stage of this year's Criterium International. We're right on the island of Corsica. I'm Phil Liggett, joined by Bob Roll, and today the riders are faced with a mountaintop finish to the summit of the top of the Col de l'Hospedal, a 9-mile climb topping out at 3,200 feet. And as you rejoin us, we're looking here now at the capture of the first of 3 breakaways. Pierre Rolland is back, but the other 2 are putting up a fight, Bob, and they've gone out to a minute.
You don't oftentimes see a top professional like Pierre Rolland get dropped on a descent. It does happen occasionally, and I don't think he'll rule the day that he did not take a look at these curves before they started down the last descent of the race before the long climb. But Bryce Fayou and Dimitri Champion still continuing on their escapade.
Well, you're getting a lovely scene here, the beauty of the island of Corsica. As we slip back towards the rear of the peloton, that was Ivan Rovny of Radio Shack, the only Russian. And if you can manage to, we're holding the picture, but look at these winds now. You can see the trees. It's almost gale force here. This is the reason they're actually racing 1 hour behind expected arrival time. And they did not take into account the strong winds on this island today, but they've had head and cross. And I'm not too sure which way round it will be on the climb, but we are in the woods for much of it.
Well, a big tailwind would definitely benefit Alberto Contador. A big headwind, perhaps, some of the other contenders in the race. If there's a big tailwind on that last climb, though, it's going to be absolutely smoking fast, and Contador will have an advantage there. I always preferred a big headwind on the climbs myself, but that David Miller mentioned that earlier in the day, and perhaps he'll get his wish. 25 Ks to go.
25 Ks to go. Now at 17 kilometers to go, the third and final bonus sprint on the course, in which they get 3 seconds, 2 seconds and 1 second time bonus. The interesting thing was, right out at the start of the race today, after 45 kilometers, Alberto Contador got third, and it might prove to be a very valuable 1 second time bonus. It was Albacini cleaning up from the bunch at the second sprint. And the breakaway, which was on for 100 kilometers, was Albert Timmer of Skill Shimano, Cedric Pinault of the Roubaix team, which has been giving a ride. A little bit of French bias there, but why not? If you organise big events, bring in some of the local lesser cycling teams, shall we say. Still all of the work, and I'm not sure this is a good tactic by Euskaltel Euskadi. They're not looking round to any help from Contador's Astana squad, and I can't see why they would do this.
You have to test the rider, especially the riders of the team that would apparently be the strongest, and to take Alberto Contador less likely than anything than absolutely lethal would be a mistake, and I think that they're going to have to pay for that. You better hope that Sammy Sanchez is on absolutely blazing form for the last climb of the day.
Now Lance Armstrong, as you know, is in the race. He's still recovering a little bit from gastroenteritis, which kept him out of Milan-San Remo. He looked very nice at the start. He was happy to be here. He's still as popular as ever. He got the loudest cheer on the podium at the start today. And you can also see, just sitting at the back, Mathieu Boucher, the new rider on the block from the USA, given a big chance here now to join Radio Shack and riding in his first Criterium International. Letting a bit of a gap go there, Bob. Not an advisable thing to do. Armstrong is just going to ride himself into this race. I'm sure he's going to try and go with Contador or anybody else who makes a move. But Lance, I think, has come into the race today with a let's see how it goes attitude.
He is looking forward to the Tour de France in July, does not want to peak too early, and the cycling season pretty tricky. It's not that easy to find your form at the exact right moment, and I think Lance has erred on the side of caution so that he comes to the early part of the season maybe a little bit less fit than he would hope to be in July and be very competitive there. In July, believe me, it's going to be a completely different set of circumstances that we're talking about.
That's the way it should be, Bob. I mean, I've just had a lovely week with Lance in Cape Town in South Africa. I even got to ride with him, and boy, he can ride that bike pretty quickly, I can tell you. I was pushed up one hill by Darryl Impey, his teammate. Not ashamed to say so either, but Lance was speaking in glowing terms of Alberto Contador. He said, you know, he's 25, I'm 12 years older than him, this guy's at the top of his game, but he's hit his form very early on. Now, Cadel Evans normally doesn't time his form till about April, yet he's also done the same this year as world champion. He rode well in the Tour Down Under, a race he's ignored during the last few years because it's too early in January. Now Lance, although he is racing and he's doing his personal appearances, he's just thinking of July, and he doesn't seem to be looking to raise his form for anything particular.
It'll be interesting to see how he approaches the last climb of this stage race. Alberto Contador, not originally scheduled to do Criterium International, but he did announce about a week ago that he was going to change his program and compete here, so I think that might have been a bit of a shock to Lance Armstrong and the rest of the contenders for this title in this particular weekend of racing.
Well, the thing about Contador having come to form right in February to win in the Tour de Algarve, he's hit his form very early on now. 22 kilometers to go. Two riders, Ferrieux and Champion, two Frenchmen still in the lead as we continue our tour de course, or as the English would say, our lap of Corsica. See you in a moment. Well, these are the two leaders. Hey, Bob, what is this then? Roll with Bob.
If you want to ride with me during the Tour de France, or perhaps in your own neighborhood, just enter the Michelob Ultra Roll with Bob, and I'm looking very much forward to that. It's going to be great. Not sure how it's going to work out schedule-wise, but we're going to try to find a rest day, so I'm not working all day. And I hope whoever wins is pretty slow on the climb.
I'll be in the car behind enjoying every moment. Rest on it. Well done, Bob. Well, these are the two leaders here. 20 kilometres to go now. They're down to around 45 seconds just now, so that hard work by Euskadi is paying off. But who are they leading to the start of the final climb? Samuel Sanchez or their arch rival Alberto Contador? That's a big question. And we've still got that one final time bonus sprint to come, but just 2 kilometres away from it now.
There's a sign, 20 kilometers to go for our two leaders. Like you said, there's a sprint along the way for a time bonus, and we'll see who contests that from the peloton. It was quite surprising to see Contador go for that early on. Maybe he just found himself in the front, decided, I'm going to grab 1 second right now. I might need that after the time trial.
Well, I think we've got to be realistic that these two need a lot more than 40 seconds when they get onto the climb today. Feliu, yes, he staked his reputation on that one brilliant day in the Tour de France, and he left the field behind. That was where Contador also reportedly disobeyed team orders and attacked in the closing kilometres to the summit of in Andorra it was. But today he needs more than 40 seconds, and from the pictures we've seen, Bob, it doesn't look to me as though Feliu quite has the legs yet.
Well, the lead is pretty slim considering the wind out on the race course today. Very heavy duty winds, almost Mistral-like as they warp across the Mediterranean and across the island of Corsica. You see the peloton now going through that same mark, 20 k's to go. It's going to be very tough for the first two riders on the road to stay away. Also, Astana now, finally, with 20 k's to go, have come to the front of the race, and they will start doing the hard work before the last climb.
So Lance Armstrong will have to start getting himself ready for the final climb here, because now, yes, Astana has started to work at the front of the peloton and give Euskadi a helping hand now. These two boys at 19 kilometres, we haven't got a time check coming in, but I would suspect they're probably down to about 35 seconds before the climb itself starts. Now we come into Porto-Vecchio at 17.5 kilometres, so we're nearly there, and that's where the small time bonus sprint, if they were to get closed down before the sprint, then I wonder if Contador would go again. 43 seconds the gap as we come away from the hills and into the port area, and then out of the port we're straight up the Ospedal, which will be a most interesting climb, and it's literally first to the top could win this two-day race, although we have the small time trial tomorrow afternoon. Well, stay with us tomorrow on Versus. Let me remind you to be with us for the final time trial as well as the morning's road race. It could be quite a spectacular weekend, this. These two still working together, 43 seconds. Well, at least they'll stay away for, in quotes, the sprint here.
Sprint just a little bit less than 1 kilometer. Taking the inside line here, a big left-hand turn there. Brace for you, a bit of an advantage. If the peloton goes around the far side of that traffic island, these guys will get a couple of extra seconds. It won't help them on the climb, of course, but those were some very dangerous couple of kilometers. When the peloton gets there in mass, hopefully everybody gets safely through that traffic furniture.
Well, as far as we know, they all came down what was a tortuous descent of the Bacchinu climb just now. Although it took care of one rider in the breakaway, Pierre Roland falling back to the bunch, making a very, very difficult descent. Look even harder than I think it was. There we are, 17 kilometres to go. So the sprint is on this. There it is, just down the road. These two leaders about 40 seconds ahead of the peloton. Bryce Feliu making his name a little bit earlier than he did 1 year ago in Andorra, on top of the Arcolis. And no sprint from these boys. A couple of seconds bonus is not going to matter in the next half hour of racing, but the man with the right name is champion of France, Dimitri Champion, taking that 3-second time bonus. There's the beautiful scenes here of the island of Corsica. Now we'll wait for the peloton to come through into that third place sprint, because we saw Contador grab a second, we saw Albacini take a second at the second sprint. Albacini perhaps not quite as significant as Alberto Contador on this occasion, but Albacini himself rides for HTC Columbia, and I think they'll be looking for a big move. I expect Michael Rogers to try and go with anything this man throws at him. And now he's still in the wheels here. Vinokurov is the man setting the pace for him now. The boys in orange are looking over to Samuel Sanchez, the champion of the Olympic Games, as we also get Radio Shack beginning to move up into the action as well. You can feel the tension, Bob, coming through the screen.
Absolutely. This as the big dogs now starting to get to the front of the peloton. Tiago Machado there, the Portuguese rider, who's having a great start of the season for the Radio Shack squad, and I think he might want to do something here on the last climb of the day. He's a very good climber and a real revelation for the Radio Shack team. Bryce Fayou, didn't hear much about him until the Tour de France, and then when he won a stage, of course, everybody took big note of that. The only noteworthy thing until that point was he was the brother of Romain Fayou, who had the yellow jersey a couple of years ago in the Tour.
Okay, well, it looks as though, and they're confirming here, because I was about to tell you we didn't see the result of the sprint. The camera's not sending the pictures, but Contador has taken third place. Armstrong is 2 seconds behind him overall, although they're riding together in the main field. It's approaching showdown time on stage 1 of the Criterium International. Don't go too far away. We'll take a short break. Tomorrow we will have the conclusion of the Criterium International, but Epic Cycle Sundays, presented by Michelob Ultra, continue next Sunday at 5 Eastern with the Tour of Flanders. Lance Armstrong and the world's best riders hit the grueling Belgian cobblestones for the real opener to the one-day classic season. Yes, the Tour of Flanders next Sunday at 5 Eastern, only here on Versus. Well, the Tour of Flanders still to come, but right now, are these two going to survive? Well, Bob, there's your answer. 10 seconds all over. We are 15 kilometers to go. We've just about started the finishing climb.
I think that's a good indication of how competitive this last climb is going to be. Generally, they would give the breakaway a little bit more time, but 10 seconds with 15 Ks to go. The peloton really racing hard, and I think shockwaves being sent through by the sprint again of Alberto Contador for 1 second time bonus in the last sprint of the day.
This guy is really on top of his form right now. I'd be somewhat afraid if I was going quite so well at this time of the year, because as Lance has said, it's March. July is when he's looking for a big result again in the Tour de France. He's going to have to come off that high form to rest and build himself back up, isn't he?
Well, let's not forget that in 2007, the first year that he won the Tour, he also won Paris-Nice, a similar scenario. 2008, asked not to start the Tour de France because of the controversy the year before with the Astana team. But I think Alberto Contador is one of the rare riders that can maintain top form throughout the season. And he loves the stage racing. He loves the climbs, and he loves to race against the best in the world. And he's come here to prove something to, I think, everybody. And he's already going out for the time bonuses. Don't oftentimes see that, and since the days of Eddy Merckx, when he was the dominant rider and wanted to gobble up every prize out on the road.
Now, interesting to note that Euskaltel have done all the work so far. Have been forced back to third team at the head of this bunch now. They're sitting behind Radio Shack, who put some riders up here, and I'm not too sure it's for Armstrong, but I would suspect it might be more likely for Chris Horner or Jaroslav Popovic. We'll wait and see, but right now there's no secret anymore. Alberto Contador has told the Astana team to set the tempo. He's planning to go alone before the top.
Looks to be Dmitry Fofonov from the Astana team doing the tempo right now. And on third wheel is none other than the hot favorite, and that is Alberto Contador. A little bit further down the line, we see Lance Armstrong right in the middle of this bunch, and he'll want to start moving forward as the climb progresses.
Well, I'm not so sure he can move forward right now, with every respect to Lance. He's also got Popovic just behind him, so there's another notable. It might be looking at Tiago Machado and Chris Horner as the top two here. Number 21, Lance Armstrong. Number 27 there is Jaroslav Popovic, and it's time to strip off. Is that Horner taking off his arm warmers, I think? Contador sitting fourth wheel at the moment of Team Astana. 15 kilometers to go, the clock is saying, but I think it's near to 14, and the hill is about to bite.
And about 10 Ks from the finish is the steepest section of the whole climb. It goes up to almost 8% in gradient. That might be the launching pad for Alberto Contador. In Paris-Nice, there was a mountaintop finish to Mende, but he did sort of gradually pull away from his rivals in that. I think today he wants to go out and put in those scintillating attacks that he's so well known for in the Tour de France.
There's Lance Armstrong a little bit further down the pack, and we normally see him, but remember, he is coming off a stomach sickness, so it's kept him out of Milan-San Remo. It's a big test personally, I think, today for Lance Armstrong, and he'd be very happy if Chris Horner or Machado could get a result for the team. Little bit worried about the whereabouts of number 27. I thought Popovic might have been a bit further up the field today. This is the sharp end now, the tempo riding by the team of the only Spanish cyclist to have won all 3 Grand Tours, and Contador is getting ready to make a move. He's very, very twitchy indeed. We've got 2 riders, 3. Here comes Chris Horner now, moving nicely into picture. Chris has said his form is good. He's very confident, and this man has done some surprisingly very good rides in his career.
He was second in the Tour of Sardinia just a few weeks ago, the island directly to the south of Corsica, so maybe he loves the Mediterranean islands. Chris Horner right there in the right position. If you're Lance Armstrong, it's a little bit worrying to be so far back. What happens is, as the pace gets harder and harder in the front, gaps start opening up, and even if you're capable of matching the acceleration of the riders in the front, you have to close those gaps, and you do that 3 or 4 times, and that puts you into the hurt locker seriously.
Well, I've seen the World Champions jersey there of Cadel Evans. They all know that this is the one point of the course where, when he makes a move, he being Contador, they're going to have to answer the call. And they know he is going to make a move. And he's already got an advantage over the rest of the field by rather cheekily taking those 2 1-second time bonuses out on the course. There's Champion now, the champion of France. It looks like he's going to ride home to the finish. His job is done. He's made his effort, shrugs his shoulders. He'll live to fight another day.
Very, very tough tempo being set by Euskaltel. These riders that were in that second breakaway of the day, they should have had a couple of minutes, maybe 3 minutes before the climb of to the finish. They only had 10 seconds, so a very competitive day. I think the winds had a lot to do with that as well. Very tough to break away from the field when it's huge headwinds like the peloton has experienced today.
Well, this is a very hard tempo here now. Just take a look at the concentration on the faces of some of these riders. I'm pretty impressed by the way Radio Shack, though, Bob, have put their team up here without their number 1, Lance Armstrong, or indeed Popovic. So they're pretty confident, I think, in Thiago Machado or Chris Horner, because they're both up here. They've forced the Euskaltel riders out of the picture right now, and that's why I think it was folly for what they did earlier on. Champion's been put in his place at the back of the race. He'll try and stay there as long as he can, but his day is basically done. Big peloton this, and it's all crunching up together. There were 128 riders on the start line today. 2 riders from Caisse-de-Pont have abandoned, Juan Jose Cobo and Mathieu Perget, the French rider on the squad, both out of the race early on today. The peloton at 12 kilometres to go are all together, and as they say in footballing terms back home, everything to play for. We'll see you in a moment. Well, there it is. Welcome back to the Criterium International. 5 kilometres to go, 32 seconds the lead. Sergio Liggett having got away at the start of the climb. He has been a bit further ahead. This is Lance Armstrong looking over his shoulder for some help here. The pace, and Popovic is waiting for him. The pressure has really gone on at the front, and it's not coming from Contador, but his teammate Navarro. Now, it looks as though Lance is just seeing what's going on here because he can't lift it anymore.
Lance moving back down the line there, 5 kilometers to go. Perhaps he's pulled the plug for today's stage, and the peloton now starting to inch away from Lance Armstrong, and he will get to the finish line. There you can see Popovic, his teammate, just in front of him, and a couple of other riders. But this is the pressure on the front of the peloton, still by the riders from Astana, and the Radio Shack teammates of Lance Armstrong still competitive there. Chris Horner right in the front.
This looks like Sergei Vinokurov who's got to the front there, Bob. This is Lance Armstrong, and it's a sight we don't see very often in cycling as far as Lance is concerned, but I think he's decided after his debilitating stomach sickness he's had to ease up here, and Popovic clearly has been told to stay with him, so he's gone back. So Armstrong in trouble on the climb, just on 4.5 kilometres from the summit, and this is when you don't want to be a star because the television cameras simply won't go away. I think he's riding within his ability. He knows he can't match the accelerations of that peloton right now, so he's just eased back. Meanwhile, at the front, 28 seconds. So the pacemaking now, when he was out to 40 plus seconds and it looked terminal for the peloton, they're fighting their way back. Armstrong's Radio Shack team do have 2 or 3 riders up here. The most significant, and if you see him, he's got the yellow shoes on, that is Chris Horner. And also we have seen there's a definite split in the group here now. Contador is on the 3rd wheel in win the breakaway. The world champion Cadel Evans assuredly has made that split. Meanwhile, it's time for a chat at the back of the race.
This is Popovich having come back to pace Lance to the finish line, and they will live to fight another day. 2 more stages left tomorrow. That's going to be a tough day. Alexander Vinokurov absolutely stomping on the pedals, cutting into the lead of Sergei Lagutin. On his wheel, it looks to be Ben Hermans from the Radio Shack squad. Radio Shack still with 3 or 4 riders in the front, including Thiago Machado and Chris Horner.
Well, just looking down the peloton, and as you can see, it's a pretty tight shot we're getting from the motorbike cameras today, but certainly the white jersey of world champion Cadel Evans has made the split here. I'm pretty certain that HTC Columbia have placed Michael Rogers in this group as well. As our camera reverts here to Lance Armstrong. I don't think we've ever seen pictures like this, have we, before, off the back of the main field in a big race, but Lance acceptedly is ill and is going to find it's a little way back. The road will be long and tough, but Lance will do it. Sergei Lagutin, 4 kilometers to go, in the lead. It was a very well-timed effort for the champion of Uzbekistan, but he must know now they're coming, and they have got themselves reorganized here, and it is that man, Sir Alexander Vinokurov, banned for blood doping, denied it right through the period of his suspension, is now back, and remembers, as he will remind you, this is the team he brought to the sport, Astana.
Astana from his home country, Kazakhstan. There's been a lot of changes to the roster in the last couple of years. Alberto Contador, third wheel, really seems to be struggling there, opening up the gaps to Ben Hermans, who is second wheel, and Vinokurov really putting the hammer down right now.
Yes, I'm not so sure that Contador is going to do anything about this. He'll just let Vinokurov have a bit of a water attrition out there and eliminate the riders he can. I don't think that Contador will be too concerned or worried by the fact that Armstrong has been dropped, but he would like to see the back end of Evans, because he has said that Cadel Evans is his big rival for victory here. He's puffing and blowing a little bit. I'd like to get a shot of Evans, because I think Evans is riding this climb very, very much within himself. Michael Rogers just peeping in the yellow, black and white colours of HTC Columbia there.
Well, if the status quo stays the same to the finish line, that would give the leader's jersey to a man who really seems to be suffering, and that is Alberto Contador. Maybe nervous about his form. He went out for time bonus seconds in the sprints, but I think Vinokurov looks to be the strongest of all. But he's doing the work now. He's hoping that Contador can accelerate from the field, but by the look on his face, I'm not sure that if he has it in his legs today.
Well, this is back with the leader, Sergei Lagutin. He looked over his shoulder. We've only seen a motorbike, but he looks over his shoulder now. He knows he's got a few problems here. Astana are pacing the race back together. There'll be no attacks till they pull back Lagutin, and then we might see Cadel Evans launch an attack, or even, indeed, David Miller, who is right there in the centre of the pack.
Well, David Miller will be looking forward to the time trial tomorrow, and if he can stay right there with the leaders, he has a very good chance to win this race overall. So David Miller, very good riding so far. Courageous move by Lagutin, but it looks like he's just about to be caught. 3 kilometers to go, and you never know what's going to happen in the last few Ks. But I'm telling you right now, to my eyes, Contador does not look to be in control and that strong. Look at the face on the man on third wheel.
Michael Rogers, a secret weapon today of HTC Columbia. We're very pleased with the way things are going just now, and if you think it's twilight here on Corsica, well, it's not far off it, because we're heading up now towards 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The rider's running an hour behind expected arrival time today because of the gale force strong winds, but they're giving it all now, and it looks as though it's going to be a long tempo up the climb at 3 kilometers to go, and a very select group of riders here going up towards the finish. And some of the big names certainly in Michael Rogers, Cadel Evans, Sanchez and Alberto Contador. They are within sight of catching Lagutin. We'll take a very short break and join us for the big finale. See you in a moment. Well, moments ago, in fact, Lagutin has been caught. These are pictures of moments ago, but let's get back straight up to the action now, because they are just about 2.5 kilometers from the summit, and we are not seeing any reaction from the man we expected, Alberto Contador. It's coming from elsewhere on the very steep part of the climb.
That looks to be David Moncoutier, a very hard acceleration there, followed by Ben Hermans, and Contador not looking strong. He's way down the line now. Mick Rogers trying to get across to our 2 leaders. What an exciting stage, and something we could not have predicted. Both Lance Armstrong and Alberto Contador now in deep trouble.
But is this Machado who's reaching up here to the leader as well? For Moncoutier did try and attack early on. That failed. They swept him up. But now he's having another go, and he hasn't done well in this race for a few years, but in the past he has ridden exceptionally well, Moncoutier.
Well, a lot of riders will take heart in seeing that the big race favorite is struggling, especially Cadel Evans in the rainbow stripes. Now he's 4th wheel in that line. Mick Rogers is there as well, and they will be thrilled to see Contador in trouble. That almost never happens on the steep climbs.
Well, this is a new David Moncoutier. He normally follows wheels and rides last man in the peloton, but today he's trying to lead the race up to the finishing line here. He's twice finished 3rd in this, and we've got an attack trying to come up on the left. It's really, really steep here at the moment, but Radio Shack without Lance Armstrong, is this Machado, I think it is, who's putting in a move here to at least fly the flag for Team Radio Shack, and Moncoutier had no answer to that.
Absolutely no answer by Moncoutier. Great maneuver there, being joined by the B-box rider, and that was a teammate. Actually, it is Pierre Fedrigo coming across.
Fedrigo himself.
Great stage win in last summer's Tour, and that is an exceptional maneuver. Big wheels there. Good riding by Pierre Fedrigo.
Fedrigo and Machado are making their move at the moment, and well, no answer coming from Contador. I think he's on a bad day, Bob.
He was tired. He didn't want to do the Catalunya race from Paris-Nice. He's had a big season so far, and maybe a little bit of a dip in his form right now, and he has vanished from the front of this bike race. There's Cadel Evans.
Cadel Evans looking across, wants some reaction from the field, and it looks as though Evans himself would not launch the attack, but is quite prepared to take it up. Michael Rogers also in 2nd place.
And one of the best climbers in the world, Mauricio Soler, their new signing on Case d'Epargne, making a great move to the finish line. He's got 2 riders in front of them, and Mick Rogers right on the wheel.
Well, I know Team Baller World were very sorry when they pulled out. This is the one rider they would love to have continued backing, Mauricio Soler. He became the king of the mountain, the Tour de France, which really put Baller World on the map, but they're gone. He has a new place now. David Miller far left, just sitting at the back. And now Soler is going to kick again. Look at the face here. I think Cadel Evans is looking over his shoulder thinking, where is Contador? Why hasn't he moved up? In fact, Contador, I think, is at the back of the group.
That is Soler.
I can't see him at all. I can't see an Astana jersey here.
I have to agree with you. I don't think Contador is still there. He's been dropped from the leading group. Dan Martin, the Garmin rider, having a good day, but they all have to chase these 2 men, Pierre Fedrigo and Thiago Machado from Radio Shack.
There's no doubt it was a tough tempo, but the tempo was all down to the teammates of Alberto Contador, who seems to be in that 2nd group trying to get back on the line here, because Euskaltel Euskadi, who are working hard early on, have now got Samuel Sanchez in the thick of the action, and it could all turn back in their favour. Evans is looking around. He hasn't made a move yet, but he's waiting. I think he's a bit confused as to the whereabouts of Alberto Contador. They've got to keep the pressure on.
And here's our 2 leaders, and it looks like Pierre Fedrigo getting a little bit of an advantage there over Machado. Here's the chasers. Amesh Cheruka leading for Sammy Sanchez. He looks to have saved something very special for this bike race. He had his teammates on throughout the day, and now we know why. He is on good form. 1 kilometer to go for Pierre Fedrigo. He might be our overnight race leader. He looks to be strong. He's dropped Machado, and he's going to the finish line about 900 meters in this race.
Well, this will be a turn up for the buck, especially for the French and for B-Box Telecom here. Fedrigo got himself 3 wins last year, really established himself, although he's now 31 years of age heading up this year. He won the 9th stage of the Tour de France last year, but right now he is riding like his jersey cuffs represent there, the champion of France as he was back in 2005. And now he's ridden away from Machado. This is going to be an incredible start for the French if he can hang on, and with that sort of tempo I can't see him losing it now.
Tooth and nail with Machado. Looking behind him, saw Machado was struggling, pedaling squares, rolling his shoulders, and he's definitely suffering himself. But when you see a rider in more difficulty than you and you're leading the race, it gives you an incredible adrenaline rush. And now Pierre Fedrigo putting everything into the pedals, trying to stay away to the finish line. Just about a half a kilometer to go.
176 kilometers in 5 hours 19 minutes and still counting. That's a long day in the saddle. That wasn't part of the plan today, but the French have been in the picture all day today with a man in every move we have had, and now they're in the important one, the chance of a huge victory here, and that this will measure up to his stage 9 win in the Tour de France, because he's beating the big names in the world of cycling. And as the crowd have realised, it's a Frenchman coming home. Pierrick Fedrigo is taking it out with a very, very measurable time gap here that might well be a winning gap. He's not the best time trialist tomorrow, but we'll see what he can do. And it looks as though Machado for Radio Shack is going to hang on there for second place, and he does by just 10 seconds, with the sprint being taken by Cadel Evans. Sammy Sanchez, I think, getting in ahead of Cadel Evans. Now the big question is, can you see him go through the picture, Alberto Contador? Not yet, and there he is, and he's lost the Tour on this one day.
Most definitely off the back now. Still quite a ways to go for this man, Alberto Contador, the hot favorite. He had his teammates on the front, but has been unable to deliver the goods, and it'll be a while before we see him finish. Very tough day for the best cyclist perhaps in the world currently, and that is Alberto Contador.
Well, that was an amazing race in the end. When everybody thought it was a mere formality at the bottom of the climb for the greatest climber in the world to just nip away and win the day and win the weekend, he's now looking at no reward by the end of tomorrow. Alberto Contador, who seemed to be on the top of his form, is coming in, and the clock will show he's already lost over a minute. Now that's something of a historical happening for the Criterium International. Those are gaps you never see amongst the favourites in this event. So Corsica on the itinerary has certainly played his part in this race today. Remember that Armstrong is probably 600 or 700 metres minimum behind Contador, so we can expect to see Lance coming in, I reckon, over 3 minutes behind.
Absolutely shocking to see Contador get dropped on this mountain. We thought that he was to be the hot favorite of the race, and perhaps overextending himself a little bit early in the season and having a big dip in form today. That's the type of stage that would absolutely be perfect for Contador if he was feeling well.
Well, who has seen a finish like this in the most recent editions of the Criterium International? I certainly haven't. It makes you feel as though we're not experts at all, Bob, because all the men we tipped weren't even there. And Fedrigo, Machado, Paul Sherwin did say Sanchez would be in the mix, and he was right there today in third place. Cadel Evans, the other big favourite, has got fourth, and he's a good time trialist, so he's certainly not out of this event. But just looking down here, this has been quite a day of racing. At the end of it, it's all been down to the last 14 kilometres of the day. We are still awaiting the arrival of Lance Armstrong. Let's have a look back at how the day was won by Pierrick Fedrigo of the B-Box Boy Telecom team. He's coming out 31 years of age now, but will be 32 in fact in November of this year. So this is going to be remembered. I make it his 22nd win of his career, and one of the best, because he rode away from the big names of the sport when they were all trying to win the day. So the clock has moved on almost 5 minutes now as Lance Armstrong comes up towards the finishing line. At least there's some good news for him, because his teammate Machado has finished second and very much in with a strike here now of winning this race tomorrow. Armstrong is home. 4:53 the probable gap. So this is the result I think nobody would have prophesied. This is the overall situation now. Fedrigo leads Thiago Machado by 15 seconds going into tomorrow. Sammy Sanchez is in third place. Cadel Evans poised at 25 seconds in fourth. Another good time trialist in Michael Rogers. He's in seventh place. And Chris Horner sits in eighth, with the top 10 completed by David Lopez Garcia. And some notables for you, and boy, we didn't expect this. Dan Martin's 13th. Miller is at 34 seconds. Alberto Contador a minute 21. He blames allergies today. Armstrong is 50th at 5:01. And first timer from the USA, Matthew Boucher, is 83rd. Well, there he is. He comes on board now to get his maillot jaune as the leader of the Criterium International. Bob, this man has never won a time trial. He needs to ride well tomorrow now.
He has to have the time trial of his life to defend that yellow jersey. But this is a great moment for Fedrigo and his team B-Box and French cycling. We had no idea that this man would be so good today. But that's cycling. You never know.
So happy days for Fedrigo. But what about Lance Armstrong? What did he think of the final climb?
Oh, mine was not very spectacular, I can tell you that. But then again, I didn't expect it to be. You know, it was a kind of a tactical climb with the wind, and you know, I guess we sort of knew that, but a lot of surprises. I mean, I think everybody at Team Radio Shack has to be happy with the way the day went. We had some boys up front. I didn't have the best day, but you know, again, it's good to get a team result. There's a couple of things at play here. Number one, I don't have that many race days under my belt like a lot of other guys. And we're in March. And so if we were having this discussion in July, then I would have to answer, yeah, I'm disappointed. But March 20, whatever, no. And the wind's a factor for everyone. The stomach is still not as good as I'd like it to be. I don't. You know, sometimes those things hang around, and you know, when you got 4 kids, you always manage to pick up what they have, and so it's sort of. I've had a hard time knocking it. I didn't feel like my body was working that good today, but that's okay. It'll pass. In the beginning, I thought I was either really, really good or really, really bad, and it was the latter. But you know, like I always say, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail, and today I was the nail.
So, Epic Cycle Sundays, presented by Michelob Ultra, continues tomorrow with the conclusion of the Criterium International. A great win today for the French, and one they're going to talk about right into the late evening. The Criterium International will conclude tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern Time, right here on Versus, of course. For a full schedule, log on to Versus.com, where you'll also find video highlights, exclusive rider insider interviews, and of course, Bob Rolls Beef. You can also follow us on Twitter at VS Cycling. Congrats to the winner today, because that was a Frenchman, Pierre Fedrigo. It's goodbye from Bob Roll and me, Phil Liggett, but don't miss tomorrow. See you there. Goodbye.